This chapter directly continues from the previous chapter. Please ensure you follow the web series chronologically. All the links will be provided in the description below. Thank you.
The House of Kuru, Part 1, Chapter 22, The Marriage of Pandu. Weeks passed and finally months passed, with Kunti spending sleepless nights thinking about the baby. What if it's eaten by wild animals? What if a horrid merchant found it and sold it to someone cruel, she thought, and these thoughts kept bubbling inside of her. Her stomach was piled with guilt, yet her beauty and grace grew bolder and bolder as time passed. Her fame for her virtue and chastity spread far and wide. Suitors approached Kuntibhoja asking for Kunti's hand in marriage. Kuntibhoja decided that time was ripe for setting up Kunti's Swayamvara. Kuntibhoja spared no expense in organizing a grand Swayamvara for his only daughter. He sent envoys all over the land of Bharata. Princes, kings, emperors, warriors, heroes of all lands were invited, and Kuntibhoja spoke with the best astrologers to identify the best time to conduct the ceremony. The astrologers took painstaking effort to find the best possible time for Kunti, and finally a date was decided. It just so happened that in the course of his Digvijaya, or campaign to expand the Kuru kingdom, Pandu, the mighty bowman, heard of the grand Swayamvara organized by the King Kuntibhoja. King Pandu sent an envoy to Bhishma. "Dearest grandsire, the Digvijaya is progressing beautifully. The tribes of Sindh, Trigarta and Kalinga have all fallen prey to my bow, and have agreed to pay tribute to the house of Kuru. In the course of my conquest, I have heard that the house of Bhoja, which performed a tremendous sacrifice under the mentorship of the watchful Durvasa for the betterment of humanity a few years ago, is now engaged in organizing a Swayamvara for the beautiful daughter of the house of Bhoja Raja named Kunti. With your blessings, grace and acceptance, I wish to attend. Please advise." When Bhishma read the message, he was overjoyed. He had heard of the famed house of Bhoja, who hailed directly from the Yadava tribes. Kuntibhoja was a powerful king, and a matrimonial allegiance with the house of Bhoja meant that the empire of Kuru spread far north to Gandhara by the matrimonial allegiance of Gandhari, and now southeast deep into the Yadava regions. Bhishma wrote a swift response to Pandu's envoy, which read, "Emperor and son of the house of Kuru, the progression of the Digvijaya fills me with much pride and admiration, yet no surprise. As you desired to prove your might, you have capably done so. My son, you have nothing but my blessings and grace to attend the Swayamvara, and if the princess of Bhoja Raja fills your heart with delight, take her for yours and defeat the other suitors. For this too you have my blessings, and I am confident you can win her hand." Whilst this may sound unusual to any other king, Pandu understood that Bhishma was a warrior, and to warriors might and majesty spoke truth over ritual and process. Indeed, it was Bhishma who took the princesses of Kashi by force. Pandu decided that Kunti should forego him. He would wage a war with the rest of the kings and take Kunti by force, as Bhishma intended him to do so. He made his way to the land of the Yadavas, located in the land of Kuntibhoja. The entire kingdom was beautifully decorated with hundreds of servants doting on the suitors and priests chanting holy mantras and performing purificatory rituals. The date of the Swayamvara was set and Pandu arrived just a day before the festivities. Pandu was indeed impressed with the entire facade of decorations surrounding the palace. The gardens and the entire city ruled over by the king called Kuntibhoja. As soon as he heard the king of the Kuru house, emperor of Hastinapura, had arrived, Kuntibhoja personally went to welcome him. Kuntibhoja had already heard of his Digvijaya and his conquest of Trigarta. The tribes of Trigarta were a pest to Kuntibhoja, frequently raiding his villages and stealing kine, cattle, and wealth. He wanted to ensure that he is well placed by Pandu as the new emperor of Hastinapura. The moment he saw Pandu, he stood in awe and admiration. Pandu was clad in gold-plated armor with a beautiful crown on his head bearing the seal of Hastinapura, with sparkling ruby earrings on both ears, shoulders which spanned the width of his chamber doors, and a bow which touched the ground to the tip of Pandu's hair. Pandu bowed with respect to Kuntibhoja, and with that deep bow, Kuntibhoja's heart was filled with warmth and excitement. Kuntibhoja's face beamed with joy. He ran towards Pandu and hugged him in tight embrace. "Come, mighty conqueror of the Trigartas. I will dote on you myself," said Kuntibhoja. "Had I known, O mighty emperor, had I even the faintest whisper that you were interested in our humble house, I would have spared the Swayamvara and donated my daughter to you personally," said the king of Bhoja. "I bow to your respects and I thank you for your kind words," said Pandu. True to his word, Kuntibhoja himself took to Pandu and ensured that he was taken to a gold-furnished room in the palace. Indeed, this was his subtle way of indicating that he preferred Pandu and waited over all his meals. Pandu couldn't help feeling a little shy and mentioned bashfully, "O ruler of the Bhojas, your kindness and generosity knows no bounds. But please, let me be served by the servants. I am quite satisfied already. Dearest Pandu, it is on your insistence that I am leaving you now. Please let me know if there is anything else that you wish for me to obtain for you," said the king of the Bhojas. Kunti heard from the palace servants that her father was shamelessly doting on a king from Hastinapura. She also heard of his prowess on the bow and his conquest of the Trigartas and the Kalingas, all of whom were enemies to the throne of Bhoja. The next day the ceremony began with every king seated and looking majestic. The illustrious Pandu looked even more majestic than all the kings combined. One by one, the beautiful Kunti, queen of the Swayamvara, progressed to each king and she moved past them. When she came to Pandu, however, she halted. His well-built upper body, his charismatic smile, and his noble lineage was enough to woo her. She also knew her father preferred Pandu over the other suitors. She flung the garland of expensive, exquisite, extravagant flowers over the large, burly neck of Pandu. As soon as the garland landed on his neck, Pandu embraced Kunti and the entire hall reverberated with a loud cacophony of cheers and agreement. Everyone agreed Kunti was a perfect match for the glorious Pandu. Unknown to Pandu, Bhishma had arrived with a large army in case there were any issues raised in the Swayamvara. Bhishma gallantly marched into the throne hall where Pandu was holding Kunti's right palm. Upon seeing Bhishma, Pandu swiftly walked to touch his feet, and Kunti reciprocated. Bhishma was full of pride and joy, beaming wildly, grinning ear to ear as he raised both his palms and blessed the couple. As soon as the bride chose the groom, Kuntibhoja ran to embrace Pandu and blessed both the bride and the groom. Feasting broke out and everyone ate to their heart's content. Pandu spent another night in the palace of Kuntibhoja, and Bhishma left for Hastinapura with the brilliant news of matrimony. Upon reaching Hastinapura, Bhishma had personally organized the wedding of Pandu and Kunti, overseeing each and every minute detail to ensure it was completed smoothly. Priests were remunerated with wealth, the poor were fed and watered, jewels were donated to the needy, and the whole empire rejoiced in the union of King Pandu and their new queen Kunti. Pandu and his new queen Kunti immediately began administering the kingdom. Pandu made immediate reforms on the empire's needy folk, and Kunti took to understanding the needs and customs of the house of Kuru.
I hope you liked today's episode of The House of Kuru. If you have not already, please subscribe to this channel and like this video so that you will be notified every time a new video is uploaded. Thank you.